Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into something uncomfortable. Specifically, a wool tunic soaked in seawater, as we transport ourselves to a remote Viking fishing village along the icy fjords of 9th century Scandinavia. Picture it now. Jagged cliffs rise behind you, the wind screams like it's got personal issues, and that thing sloshing in your boots? That's not seawater. It's regret. You're about to spend a full day among the hardy Norse fisher folk, and fair warning, you probably won't survive this. Not from battle or berserker raids, but from the relentless wetness, the pervasive stink of salted cod, and the social anxiety of communal sauna customs. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from, and what time it is there. Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge off a long ship that's seen better days, and so have you. Your limbs are stiff from crouching between barrels of pickled herring and itchy wool. The salt crust on your face crunches when you squint. Around you, a handful of stern-faced Norsemen grunt as they unload nets, dried fish, and something suspiciously shaped like a walrus liver. The air stinks of brine and burning peat. The village isn't much. Maybe a dozen turf-roofed huts dotting the shoreline like squashed muffins. Smoke curls lazily from one chimney. Everything feels damp. The ground squelches underfoot with that unmistakable, "there's moss in my boots" sensation. A man with a beard so thick it could house birds points at you, then points at a sled made of whalebone. Apparently, that's your luggage cart now. The older women peer at you like you're a particularly dumb sheep. One mutters something that probably translates to, "This one won't last till dusk." Historians still argue whether newcomers were welcomed warmly or just tolerated as extra hands. You're led to your home for the night. It's half buried in the earth, like it's hiding from the wind, which, frankly, is smart. Inside, it's barely warmer. A central hearth emits more smoke than heat, and everything smells faintly of damp fur. A goat regards you from the corner with judgmental eyes. Its name, you learn, is also Bjorn. There's no bed, just some straw, a moth-chewed blanket, and a wooden pillow that doubles as a chopping block. You drop your gear and try not to cry. Bjorn, the man, not the goat, snores audibly, already asleep despite it being mid-morning. Or maybe he's in a food coma. Hard to say. Your first gift from the village elder? A pair of wooden clogs with fish scales still stuck to them. Charming. You step outside to orient yourself. The fjord stretches out, slate gray and glimmering, with gulls wheeling overhead. There's a fog creeping down the mountain that gives the entire place a dreamlike feel, if your dreams include frostbite and oddly shaped turnips. The local kids run by, barefoot, throwing ice chunks at each other like it's normal. One of them shouts something about troll weather. You believe him. A small ritual begins near the beach, a boat blessing, or possibly a seagull shooing. Someone bangs a carved wooden fish against a rock rhythmically. Historians debate whether this was symbolic or just a creative way to tenderize fish. You try to blend in by copying their stoic expressions, but the wind immediately slaps your face, and your eyes water in protest. A woman in sealskin gloves chuckles softly. That's the most warmth you'll get all day. Eventually, someone hands you a tool. It's unclear what it does, but it smells like fermented fish guts. You're now officially part of the community. You're tired, freezing, confused, and it's only your first hour here. The door to your new home doesn't close. It leans, like a tired man who gave up halfway through the job. Wind whistles through the cracks, carrying with it the persistent smell of fish. Not fresh fish, mind you. Fish that have been dead for at least 3 weeks, and are now in the process of becoming Viking delicacies. You wake up, if you can call it that. You didn't really sleep, more like shivered with your eyes closed. Bjorn, again, the man, not the goat, rolls over, scratches something you'd rather not look at, and lumbers outside. The goat bleats. You stare at the roof, which drips steadily onto your forehead. There is no bathroom, in case you were still holding out hope. There's the fjord, the bushes, and a communal pit you were warned about. You decide to delay that experience. You shuffle outside, every joint complaining, and are greeted with a bowl. It's wood, slightly cracked, and contains something that might once have been barley. It's gray. It jiggles when tilted, and it's cold. No one offers you a spoon. That's on you. You slurp carefully, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. It tastes like wet paper and regret. A child offers you a side of dried fish skin. It crackles between your teeth like fishy parchment. You smile. The child does not smile back. Beside the fire pit, a woman is slicing open a fish with terrifying precision. She sees you watching and gestures for you to help. You nod too quickly. Mistake. Now you're kneeling in the cold, elbow deep in something slimy, pulling guts out of a herring while she critiques your technique in Old Norse. The hut fills with smoke as someone tries to dry fish, using damp moss and a fire that won't catch. You're pretty sure you're inhaling equal parts trout and carbon monoxide. Historians still argue whether Viking women ran domestic tasks or completely ran the household. Judging by how this woman just smacked a man with a haddock and nobody batted an eye, you're leaning toward the latter. The goat, Bjorn, pees on your wooden clogs. You pretend it didn't happen. Back outside, you notice your neighbors hard at work untangling nets. These aren't just any nets. They're massive, hand-knotted beasts made of sea-drenched hemp, stiff with salt and age. You're called over. Your job? Untangle them. With your fingers. Which no longer feel like fingers. The cold here is not passive. It seeks you out. It wriggles into your sleeves, your collar, your ears. Even the inside of your skull feels frosty. You try breathing through your mouth, but the air tastes like kelp and wood smoke. When you blink, your eyelashes stick. Still, you persist. One knot at a time. One fish scale at a time. One gloveless, freezing minute at a time. A passing boy drops a cod head into your lap. You don't know why. No one explains. You nod solemnly. He nods back. A shared moment of silent confusion. The elder strolls past, sniffs, and mutters something that loosely translates to, "They've smelled worse." A compliment, probably. Nearby, someone begins humming. A lilting tune that doesn't sound particularly cheerful or sad, just inevitable. Like the fog, like the fish, like your fingers, now roughly the same color as raw scallops. Historians still debate whether Viking communities sang work songs, or if the humming was just a way to drown out the pain of reality. Either way, you hum too. You've earned it. Time becomes slippery in this village. Minutes stretch like eel guts. You lose track of how long you've been kneeling by the net. Maybe an hour, maybe a week. You wipe your hands on your tunic. Mistake. Now your tunic smells like low tide. Someone laughs. You're becoming one of them. But just as you think, I could get used to this. A gust of wind slaps you sideways, the goat sneezes on you, and your stomach growls again. You are very much still a tourist in this soggy purgatory. Welcome to your new life. Try not to cry. By now, you're fully awake. But not because you're rested. More because your body has activated a survival mode typically reserved for shipwrecks and surprise bear encounters. Someone taps you on the shoulder with a flat piece of wood and gestures toward the hearth. Breakfast round 2. You're hopeful. Maybe it's warm this time. It is not. You're handed another bowl. This one contains a barley gruel that's slightly less gray than yesterday's, if only because there's a chunk of something reddish floating in it. A berry? A chunk of fish organ? No one clarifies. You taste it and decide it's chewy. That's all you need to know. Your companion offers a flatbread so dry it could double as roof tile. You attempt to chew it politely, but it disintegrates into shards that scratch the roof of your mouth. A dog stares at you intently. You give it the rest. It does not say thank you. Over in the corner, Bjorn is trying to coax a fire from damp kindling. The smoke, instead of rising politely, does a full U-turn and pours directly into your face. Your eyes tear up, but you nod in solemn Viking approval. Everyone else is crying too. Maybe that's just part of the morning ritual. You hear the words rowing shift and freeze. A man points to a narrow longboat rocking at the shoreline. It's your turn. You feign confusion. Doesn't work. They hand you an oar the size of a tree trunk and guide you toward the boat like a child being led to time out. The boat's interior is slick with fish oil, seawater, and something that might be squid ink. You sit. You grip the oar. It weighs roughly the same as a small elk. Your shoulders sigh in protest. The others begin rowing in a synchronized, relentless rhythm. You try to match it. You fail. You get splashed. You recover. You get splashed again. This is fine. You're basically part Viking now, just soggier and less coordinated. Historians still argue how often fishing expeditions were mandatory for every able body, especially newcomers. Judging by the glares when you stop rowing to adjust your sleeve, it seems pretty mandatory here. An elder in the front shouts something incomprehensible. Everyone rows harder. You row harder, too, hitting your own knee in the process. It's okay. You didn't need that kneecap. Eventually, the longboat glides into deeper waters. The shoreline now a jagged silhouette behind you. The wind picks up, and with it comes a salty mist that sticks to your face like betrayal. As you row, your mind begins to wander. What if you had stayed in your soft, dry bed back in the 21st century? What if you were, right now, sipping hot coffee in an ergonomic chair? What if you hadn't agreed to go just one day in a Viking fishing village for fun? But there's no turning back now. The boat creaks. The water slaps rhythmically against the hull, and a seagull drops something suspicious on your hood. You glance at the others, stoic, focused. A few even smile as they row, as if this is the highlight of their day. And maybe it is. Out here, there's space, air, freedom, and fish. Always fish. One man begins to sing. It's low, slow, melodic, in a way that makes your muscles ache in time with the notes. You don't know the words, but you hum along. You glance overboard and catch a glimpse of something large under the water. Maybe it's a seal. Maybe a sea monster. Maybe your hopes, sinking gently to the bottom. The sun finally emerges for a moment, blinking between clouds. It casts a shimmer across the waves that almost makes you forget how exhausted you are. Almost. Then the rowing starts again. Of course it does. The oar has become an extension of your body, unwieldy, splinter-filled, and wildly unhelpful. Your arms ache in ways you didn't think possible. Even your fingernails are tired. But the Vikings around you are unfazed. They row like they were born doing it. And maybe they were. A shout from the front snaps you out of your daze. Nets. It's time. The longboat slows, then rocks precariously as everyone shifts to one side. You follow their lead, trying to look like you know what you're doing. You don't. They toss the net into the sea with practiced ease, letting it unfurl like a gigantic, slimy blanket. You're handed a coil of rope. It's wet, of course. Everything is always wet. You begin pulling, and immediately regret being born with arms. The net is heavier than it looks, and it already looked miserable. It resists with every inch, as if the ocean itself doesn't want to give up its fish. Or maybe it's just the eel that has wrapped itself stubbornly around the net, like some sort of slippery anarchist. A gull lands on the edge of the boat and screams at you. You scream back. The gull wins. Eventually, with help from a very muscular teenager named Eagle, the net breaks the surface. It's teeming with life. Fish flop madly. Water sprays in every direction, and a crab pinches your thumb with alarming speed. You shriek. No one reacts. Apparently, this is normal. You help sort the catch. Cod, herring, one extremely angry eel, and something that may or may not be a jellyfish. A man holds it up, squints, and tosses it overboard with a grunt. Historians still argue whether Vikings truly understood jellyfish, or just considered them untrustworthy sea ghosts. The sorting process is chaotic. Fish are thrown into baskets, sorted by size or smell. You're not sure. You try not to breathe too deeply. Meanwhile, the weather turns. Of course it does. Rain doesn't fall here. It slaps, cold and aggressive, as though the sky personally resents your existence. You're drenched within seconds. The boat rocks harder. Water sloshes at your feet. The eel escapes its basket, wriggles across the deck, and disappears into someone's boot. No one notices. You row back under a sky the color of old iron. Your cloak, if it could ever be called that, clings to your body like a sad seaweed hug. Eagle laughs and slaps your back. You nearly fall overboard. Back on land, you stagger off the boat, soaked and aching. Someone hands you a lump of dried meat. You chew without asking questions. It tastes like salt, wood, and faint despair. A woman waves at you from the salting shed. She's smiling, which is suspicious. You wave back, wary. Another man approaches holding a sack that twitches. He opens it to reveal live fish, still gasping. You're apparently in charge of transferring them to the smokehouse. It's uphill. Of course it is. You begin the trek, the sack slung over your shoulder, its contents slapping rhythmically against your back. Each step squelches. The mud clings. Your shoes, which have basically disintegrated, offer no protection. You wonder if your toes are still there. Probably. The smokehouse looms like a soggy wooden dragon, exhaling clouds of pungent, fishy fog. Inside, rows of cod hang from beams, their eyes blank, their mouths frozen mid-scream. Comforting. You hang your sack contents alongside them. One fish flops in protest. You apologize. Smoke curls around your face, stinging your eyes and coating your tongue. The smell is intense. Part burnt wood, part ocean, part death. A recipe for nasal trauma. Still, there's something oddly peaceful about it. The heat from the fire warms your palms. The smoke softens the noise outside. For a moment, you almost relax. Then the door creaks open, and a wet goat walks in. You sigh. Just another day in paradise. You're not sure how long you stood in the smokehouse, basking in that oddly comforting scent of cooked despair. But eventually, a call from outside yanks you back to reality. Someone points to the boat again. Your stomach drops. No, you're not going back out. This time, they want you to help clean the nets. You nod solemnly. Of course. The nets, the wet, slimy spaghetti monsters you untangled earlier, are now back on land, tangled again, and somehow worse than before. They've taken on a life of their own. You swear one of them growled. You're shown to a small wooden bench beside the water. A pile of wet netting is dumped at your feet. A wooden comb the size of your forearm is placed in your hand. You are now officially a net groomer. You begin the slow, tedious work of combing through each strand, separating weeds from rope, slime from knots, and the occasional barnacle from your own hair. A few others join you, older women with calloused hands and calm faces. They hum as they work, soft, almost tuneless melodies that rise and fall like the tide. One of them offers you a pickled turnip. You decline. She shrugs and eats it in one bite. Behind you, the boat is being patched with animal fat and pine resin. The smell is memorable. A man explains the process in a language you don't understand, but his gestures are enthusiastic. He hands you a piece of fur and motions for you to help rub seal grease into a wooden seam. You nod, smiling through the nausea. Historians still debate how much maintenance went into each boat per season. But if this crew is any indication, the answer is every waking moment until you die. Later, you're sent to fetch water from the stream. You take a wooden bucket, barely held together by hope and twine, and make your way up a muddy trail. The wind has picked up again. Of course it has. Halfway there, you slip on a mossy rock and nearly baptize yourself in glacial runoff. But you recover, with dignity mostly intact, and fill the bucket. The water is cold, clear, and probably full of microscopic Viking surprises. You drink anyway. Hydration is important, even in your fictional historical suffering. As you return, the village is abuzz with commotion. A boy runs past, shouting excitedly. You catch the word whale. People begin gathering at the shore. You follow, because at this point, why not? There it is, a massive, dark shape bobbing offshore. Not a full whale, but maybe a large chunk of one. The elders debate fiercely. Some say it's ambergris, a rare and valuable whale byproduct. Others claim it's driftwood. One woman swears it's a sea troll's egg. You, as an outsider, wisely say nothing. You do edge a little closer, just to look. It smells weird, like ocean rot and wet leather. You nod sagely. Definitely troll-related, you whisper. No one laughs, but someone offers you a dried mussel as thanks for your observation. Historians still argue whether Vikings truly believed in sea monsters, or simply used those stories to keep kids from swimming too far. Judging by the serious expressions on these faces, you lean toward belief. Eventually, the object is tied to a rope and dragged ashore. You are instructed to help. Of course you are. You grab a section of rope slick with barnacles and help heave. Your shoulders scream. Your hands blister. Your soul whimpers. But it moves. Slowly, the mysterious object lurches onto land with a sound like a wet sigh. It's a chunk of whale, all right. Maybe. Definitely not treasure. Possibly dinner. Afterward, you're told to rinse off in the shallows. You step into the icy fjord, immediately regretting every life choice. The cold punches you square in the lungs. Your feet go numb. Your brain briefly forgets your name, but you scrub. because you stink, like fish, seal grease, and whatever that whale chunk was. You emerge from the water red-faced, shaking, and probably cleaner, though emotionally scarred. Someone hands you a dry tunic. It's made of woven wool and smells like goat, but a clean goat. Progress. You sit by the fire to dry, hoping this qualifies as rest. It doesn't. Rest, in this village, is a fluid concept, mostly theoretical. As soon as you begin to feel the fire's warmth sinking into your bones, someone taps your shoulder and gestures toward the salt shed. You groan internally, but stand. Your legs feel like they've been stuffed with wet driftwood. The salt shed is little more than a lean-to with crates, stacked high and open barrels of brine sloshing in the breeze. Inside, the smell hits you like a salted fish slapped to the face, an aggressive blend of decay, ocean, and old wood. You instantly regret breathing. Your task is simple. Help preserve the day's catch, which, in Viking terms, means rubbing salt into every fish, layer by layer, until they're stacked like damp playing cards in open barrels. You're given thick gloves made of stiff leather and a bucket of salt that crunches when you stir it, as if to say, "This is your life now." You grab a cod, cold, stiff, and judging, and begin. Rub salt into the skin, pack it into the barrel, repeat, again, again, again. As your muscles fall into the rhythm, your mind wanders. You think about how refrigeration won't be invented for another 1,000 years, and how this entire process is what passes for technology right now. Historians still argue whether this method produced truly long-lasting preservation, or just made fish incredibly chewy and marginally less lethal. Next to you, an old man whistles a tune that has no rhythm, but somehow matches your energy perfectly. He nods to you, pats a fish lovingly, and drops it into the barrel like a baby being tucked in for the night. Nearby, someone plays a jaw harp, a twanging little instrument that sounds like a frog hiccuping in rhythm. The sound warbles through the salty air, oddly hypnotic. You find yourself tapping along with a bit of fish brine still clinging to your elbow. The sun begins to lower, casting a golden haze across the salt crystals and turning the air into a shimmering curtain. For a fleeting moment, you understand why people found poetry in this life, why sagas were sung about such ordinary, exhausting days. A small group gathers around a barrel of particularly large fish. They're debating something. You shuffle closer. One man claims the fish are too large to be caught. Another insists they're from the deep sea, caught only once a decade. A woman rolls her eyes and says they're just fat herring. The argument escalates into a low-key shouting match, until someone declares it's the work of a sea giant who blesses nets when properly bribed with pickled onions. You decide not to get involved. You return to your own barrel, only to find a seagull perched on its edge, eyeing your work like a health inspector. It squawks when you shoo it away and drops something onto your boot in protest. You sigh and continue salting. At one point, a little girl walks by with a basket of herbs and moss. She places a sprig of something that smells vaguely minty behind your ear. You thank her. She walks away without a word. The others laugh softly. You don't ask why. It's better this way. Time drips by like the brine pooling on the floor. You lose yourself in the quiet repetition, the crunch of salt, the flop of fish, the hum of voices fading into dusk. By the time you finish, your gloves are soaked, your arms are sore, and your sense of smell is permanently compromised. Someone offers you a sip of something in a carved horn cup. It's sharp, fermented, and burns on the way down. You cough. They cheer. It's almost dinner. Almost. Dinner is supposed to be a reward, right? A comforting pause in the middle of your damp, fish-scented descent into Viking life. That's what you tell yourself as you stumble toward the communal hearth, your legs full of salt and your arms permanently fish-shaped. The hall is bustling, though hall may be generous. It's more like an extra-large hut with benches, a central fire, and enough lingering smoke to pickle your lungs. People are talking, laughing, scraping bowls, passing wooden mugs, and yelling over a dogfight in the corner that no one seems particularly concerned about. You find a place near the back, just as someone ladles out something thick and orange into your bowl. You peer into it, half hopeful. Stew, maybe? You take a bite. It's turnips. Mashed, overcooked, aggressively earthy turnips with flecks of dried fish skin. It clings to your teeth like a grudge. A man beside you pats his stomach with satisfaction and offers you a slice of dried seal meat. You politely nibble, trying not to look horrified. It tastes like jerky marinated in sadness. Across from you, a young woman stands and begins to recite a verse. It's rhythmic, dramatic, filled with words you don't understand but feel. The others fall silent, nodding along. You try to nod too, just to fit in. The performance ends with a loud belch from the elder in the corner. Applause all around. Historians still debate whether evening meals in Viking fishing villages involved storytelling rituals, or if this was unique to coastal settlements. Either way, it feels genuine and slightly intimidating. You're too afraid not to clap. Then the chieftain enters. He's tall, broad, and wears a fur cloak that looks like it ate at least 3 wolves. He carries a horn of mead and surveys the room with the casual menace of someone who knows he's the biggest guy in every room. He sits near the fire, and everyone makes way like the tide parting. And wouldn't you know it, you're sitting just 1 seat away. Uh-oh. He raises his horn in your direction. You panic and raise your wooden bowl in return, forgetting it still contains turnip mash. Some of it sloshes out and lands, perfectly, on the shoe of the young woman next to him. Silence. You freeze. She stares at the turnip blob, then at you. The chieftain leans forward slowly. Then, "Thank Odin," he laughs. A deep, belly-shaking laugh that echoes off the rafters and makes your bones feel slightly less cursed. He claps you on the back, with enough force to dislocate a less determined person. You survive. Barely. The young woman rolls her eyes, mutters something about outsiders, and sits. You're not sure if you've offended royalty, but at least you're not exiled. Yet. A toast follows. Mead is passed. You sip cautiously. It's sweet, smoky, and somehow tastes like summer, despite the fact that your toes are still frozen. As the meal winds down, musicians take out a lyre and a drum. The songs are slow and repetitive, like waves lapping against the side of a boat. Your eyes begin to droop. A dog curls up by your feet. Someone drapes a bear pelt over your shoulders. The smell of burning juniper fills the room. For a moment, everything is warm, peaceful. Then, of course, someone yells. A boy bursts through the door, shouting that a cart of herring has tipped over into the goat pen. Everyone groans. You're not sure whether to help or hide, but before you can choose, someone hands you a torch and says something that sounds suspiciously like, "Go deal with it, turnip guy." You've found your nickname. Torch in hand, you stumble into the night, following the frantic yelling of children and the distinctive bleating of what can only be described as very confused goats. The air is colder now, sharp, metallic, like it's been filtered through a glacier. Your breath fogs in front of you, and the muddy ground sucks at your feet with every step. You hear splashing, not a good sign. As you round the corner, the goat pen comes into view, and yes, the rumors were true. A wooden cart lies on its side, wheels up like a dead beetle, and herring, so many herring, are scattered across the ground like fishy confetti. The goats, delighted by this unexpected buffet, are chomping away with wild abandon. You're not sure what's worse, the smell of crushed fish underhoof, or the sight of one goat trying to balance a whole mackerel on its back like a prize. You approach cautiously. The goat hisses. That's right, hisses. Historians still argue whether Norse goats were just weird, or if this one's possessed. A woman arrives with a rake and hands it to you without a word. It's a tool, yes, but it's also a statement. You made a mess at dinner. Now make yourself useful. You begin scraping herring into a pile. It's slow going. The fish are slimy, the mud deeper than expected, and the goats, not helpful. One keeps licking your sleeve. Another gently headbutts your shin every time you turn your back. At some point, Eagle shows up, carrying a new cart and looking far too cheerful for someone ankle-deep in fermented fish water. He nods at you, then starts humming the same off-key tune from earlier. You hum too. Misery loves company, after all. Eventually, most of the herring is salvaged, though now thoroughly chewed. You're not sure if it'll be dried, salted, or turned into goat feed. Maybe all three. Waste not, want not. You try to stand and realize your knees no longer function. They've staged a quiet rebellion. You settle for crawling out of the pen like a fish-covered swamp creature. A child points and laughs. You wave weakly. Someone throws you a rag. It's damp and smells like vinegar, but it's better than nothing. You wipe your face, then toss it over your shoulder. It lands on a goat. The goat does not care. You return to your hut, reeking of defeat and sardine residue. Bjorn, the man, is asleep, snoring loud enough to rattle the rafters. The fire has burned low, casting flickering shadows on the walls. You collapse onto the straw mat. It prickles your back, but at least it's dry. Well, mostly. You roll onto your side and stare at the ceiling, which seems to lean closer the longer you look at it. You try to sleep. You really do. But your brain is too full. Too much fish. Too many smells. Too many goats. And then, the itch. You sit up and scratch your arm, then your neck, then your ankle. You light a tiny oil lamp and examine your sleeve. Lice. Of course. You sigh, blowing out the lamp, and lie back down. Historians still debate the frequency and severity of lice infestations in Norse settlements, though most agree it was not ideal. As you finally drift off, scratching gently, reeking profoundly, you hear a voice outside. "Night watch," someone mutters, and then you remember. It's your turn. The phrase "night watch" sounds heroic in theory. You probably pictured yourself standing on a bluff, wind in your hair, gazing nobly over the fjord while your fellow villagers slept peacefully. Reality is different. You're jolted from your almost sleep by a sharp knock on the doorframe. A boy no older than 12 shoves a horn cup into your hand, mutters something that might translate to good luck, and disappears into the dark. You crawl to your feet. Your body protests like a rusty gate. Every joint makes a sound. None of them are reassuring. You dress as best you can, wool tunic still damp, clogs still questionably functional. You grab a torch and step outside. The cold hits you like a disappointed parent, immediate, unforgiving. The village at night is quieter, but not peaceful. The sea murmurs in the distance. The wind howls between the huts. Somewhere, a chicken makes a nervous sound. You're not sure why. Probably best not to ask. You make your way to the watch post, a crooked wooden platform just tall enough to twist an ankle if you misstep. You climb up, torch held high, trying not to look as scared as you feel. Your job is simple. Stay awake. Watch for raiders, fires, wild animals, or anything else that might ruin what's left of this already cursed day. The stars are out, though most are hidden behind ribbons of mist. The moon glows faintly above the fjord, casting a silvery sheen on the water. It's beautiful, in a bone-deep, lonely sort of way. You sit, you wait, you scratch. After about 20 minutes, your brain starts making up threats. Was that movement? Did you see a shadow behind that boulder? Is that a wolf or just Bjorn snoring unusually loud? You clutch the torch a little tighter. Then something does move. A rustle in the grass. You squint. It's a pig. Just a pig, trotting casually past you with absolutely no sense of urgency. It pauses, grunts at you, and continues its slow march to nowhere. You let out a breath. Your heart slowly returns to a more sustainable tempo. Historians still debate how often villages were truly raided in coastal Norway during fishing seasons, especially in smaller, tight-knit communities like this. Most likely, the threat was more psychological than constant. Still, it's hard to shake the feeling that you're a very squishy alarm bell for a very large village. To stay awake, you talk to yourself. You name stars. You invent stories for the goats. You whisper curses at the lice. You hum the jaw harp tune, off-key, but with conviction. You hear a snore from one of the nearby huts and feel a pang of jealousy. Those people are warm, dry, sleeping. You, however, are developing a close relationship with a torch and a splintered bench. Eventually, you stand and stretch your legs, which have gone numb again. You pace back and forth, watching your breath fog in front of you. Then, movement again. You freeze. This time, it's not a pig. A figure steps out of the trees. Tall, cloaked, holding something long. You grip your torch tighter, heart pounding. Then they step closer. It's just Eagle, carrying a bundle of firewood and a very amused expression. You flinch like a Saxon, he says in something close to English. You smile, barely. He hands you a chunk of dried fish. You chew it silently. It's still awful. The rest of the night passes like molasses in a glacier. Slow, sticky, cold. When the first streaks of pink appear over the mountains, you nearly cry from relief. A rooster crows. The village stirs. You've made it. Barely. Someone relieves you from duty with a grunt and a nod. You nod back, too tired to form words. You trudge home, every inch of you screaming for rest. But you already know what's waiting. Sunrise chores. You barely make it back to the hut before another task is dropped on your head. Figuratively this time. A sharp knock at the door, or what remains of it, and a shouted command in brisk, Old Norse snap you out of your sleep-deprived trance. You turn, bleary-eyed, to find a woman holding a dull antler blade and pointing toward the boats. Not again. You shuffle after her like a confused barnacle, the world still half muted by exhaustion. The sky is now a pale wash of lavender and cold blue, and the fjord sparkles like it's mocking you. The longboats, still damp from yesterday's miserable excursions, sit half-frozen at the shoreline. Their wooden hulls are caked in frost. Your job, de-ice them. You blink. Then you look at the antler blade. It's not sharp, not even close. It's more like a butter knife carved by someone who's never seen a knife. You give it a half-hearted scrape along the boat's side. A thin crust of ice flakes off, and then your hand slips. You nearly impale yourself on your own incompetence. This is going to take a while. Egil joins you, of course, cheerful as always. He has 2 blades, one for scraping, and one for poking at things unnecessarily. He offers you a drink from a small flask. You decline. He shrugs and takes a swig. His cheeks flush immediately. You return to scraping. The work is slow and numbing in every sense. Ice clings stubbornly to every crevice, and your fingers go from cold to aching, to simply non-existent. The village elder walks past and mutters something about lazy sea trolls. You're not sure if he means you or the boats. Possibly both. Every now and then, someone tosses more warm water on the planks to loosen the frost. This helps briefly, until it instantly refreezes in the morning chill. It's like playing a game you can't win, but the prize is more damp socks. A small boy wanders over and starts licking the side of a boat. He yelps. His tongue is stuck. A woman sighs and pries him free with a practiced motion. No one even pauses their work. This is apparently a regular occurrence. You scrape. You chip. You mutter curses under your breath, which immediately freeze and fall to the ground like little nuggets of suffering. At one point, your antler blade breaks in half. You stare at the 2 pieces in disbelief. Egil pats your back and hands you a new one, this time made of bone, slightly sharper, slightly heavier, slightly more depressing. Historians still debate how often boats were maintained in such icy conditions, or if this duty rotated among villagers. Given your luck, you're assuming it's whenever the new guy is too slow to hide. As the sun finally climbs above the hills, the frost begins to melt on its own. You pretend your scraping helped. With most of the boats de-iced, a group begins patching weak spots with pine tar and moss. You offer to help, thinking it might be warmer. It is not. The tar sticks to your hands, your sleeves, your hair, and somehow, your teeth. You're not sure how. You step back, hands covered in gunk, and realize you've reached a new low. Sticky, sleep-deprived, cold, and now covered in tree goop. A dog walks by and sniffs you with concern. You rinse your hands in a barrel of seawater, which is marginally warmer than your soul at this point. Behind you, Bjorn the goat is eating one of your mittens. You let him. There's something meditative in the misery, a strange kind of focus. When everything hurts, nothing else matters. You're just here, breathing, scraping, existing. One of the elders approaches and places a hand on your shoulder. He says something in a quiet tone. You don't catch most of it, but you think you hear the word tough. It might be a compliment, or a warning. Either way, you nod. You're still standing, with the sun now fully risen, and the boats thawing into their usual damp state. You think, just for a second, that you might get a break. You've de-iced boats with prehistoric tools. You've been pecked by gulls, humiliated by goats, and renamed Turnip Guy. You've earned a nap at the very least. Instead, you are summoned to the midden heap. Yes, the garbage pile. No one says it out loud, of course. They just wave a hand toward the edge of the village where, through the mist, you can make out a low mound of refuse. Fish bones, broken pottery, burnt firewood, unidentifiable sludge. The aroma is layered, pungent, aggressive, a rich tapestry of Viking leftovers and organic shame. You're handed a crude rake, which is really just a stick with smaller sticks tied to it, and a woven basket already full of something squishy. Your task? Sort the compost from the tossable trash. Apparently, the goats have been eating too much charred seal bone and not enough leftover greens. That's on you now. You set to work, your nose in full retreat. Every now and then, you uncover something interesting. A fragment of a carved spoon, the partial jaw of a dog, or possibly a seal, even a rusted fish hook still lodged in a very old, very confused-looking cod skull. You admire it briefly, then toss it aside. A few children wander over to watch. One bets his friend that you'll throw up. You don't, but just barely. Historians still argue whether Norse communities organized sanitation formally, or whether the midden heap was simply everyone's shared punishment for being alive. As you gag gently behind a barrel, you hear shouting from the central hearth. Something about strangers and the chieftain's daughter. You look up just in time to see her. Yes, the same girl you spilled turnip mash on, walking straight toward you, looking not furious, but amused, dangerous. She stops, picks up a bone from your pile, examines it. "This was a good cut," she says, pointing to a clean fish vertebra. "You did this?" You blink. You nod. Of course you didn't, but you're not correcting her. She smiles faintly, drops the bone into your basket. "Not bad, outsider. Better than my cousin. He lit the midden on fire last week." Then she turns and walks away, her cloak whipping in the wind like she's in a dramatic saga no one told you about. The children stare at you in disbelief. You rake faster now, heart pounding for reasons you'd rather not explore.